I don't fight to lose. Had to show my peers. I ain't had no fear. Player of the year. I made it top tier. Murphy gon' put y'all on. Murphy gon' put y'all on. That's for sure. Murphy gon' put y'all on. Murphy gon' put y'all on. That's for sure. Murphy gon' put y'all on. Murphy gon' put y'all on. That's for sure.
Welcome to the Frank D. Murphy Show. I'm your host, Frank D. Murphy, AKA Murph Time. Now, this is a juicy topic. The topic for today is divorce a sign of failed love? Now, before I get into that, I got to introduce my co, because she don't got a different hairdo, so I'm about to turn to her and say, what's up, Kay? What's
Hey,
good? You ready?
I'm ready to
You like this topic, huh?
Oh, yes, got some experience.
Well, we're going to get right into it. We ain't even going to hold back. Go ahead, hit me.
Okay, so I have some questions for you. The first question is there an expiration date on marriage?
Man, I think that depends on the two decision makers.
Okay.
Which is the two people that's in the marriage.
Okay.
Because it could be an expiration date within a year if something happens as far as the decision making. Right. If he or she make a decision to cheat or violence or things of that nature, then the expiration date can be real fast. So that's my opinion on expiration date. You don't want that, but at the end of the day, your decisions, a series of good decisions is the gateway to success. A series of bad decisions is the gateway to failure.
Okay, well, in that case, so you're in a marriage, you get divorced. Are you wrong? Should you have done more?
I feel like you always gonna have that question because we're not perfect. So you always gonna be looking at things like, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that. But this is the thing that I'll tell you. Once you make that step, your past should no longer be brought in your presence. Because once you bring it into your presence, it possibly could destroy your future. Future relationships, future engagements, future marriage. Once you make that decision, my first advice is for you to fix you. It's never about the other person. It's all about how can I improve me? What can I do better? What did I do wrong? Because it's no longer about the person in your past. You're getting ready for your future mate or your future spouse. That's what I would say, Kay. That's how I feel about it.
Okay. Now, Frank, I'm gonna dive deep. I'm gonna get a little personal.
Okay. Go ahead.
Frank, do you have experience with divorce?
Yes.
Okay.
I think divorce, when it comes to me, I learned I'm not gonna ever throw nobody under the bus.
Right.
No matter how dirty it gets, no matter how nasty it gets, I'm gonna maintain my character and integrity. I'm gonna turn to this right here because I want y'all to look at me. Maintain your character and integrity. When somebody get muddy with you, don't you jump in the mud with them and get dirty.
Right.
You let them stay muddy by themselves. Yeah, it's gonna hurt. Yeah, it's gonna be like, man, they trying me, why they lying, why they doing this. But I will encourage you. A person that walks in truth don't have to defend truth.
True.
They don't even have to defend lies. Because a lie is like a sprint. It burns out. The truth is like a marathon. It continues to go on and on and on unless you take off your marathon shoes and put on your sprint shoes with that spouse. So to answer your question, I learned just to still lift people up. No matter what mistakes they made or mistakes I made, I learned to move on. And one thing about me, I feel like a strong point of mine, once I move on, I move on. And I leave whatever's in the past in the past. Good. And I learned that over the years, of course.
That's good. I think a lot of us have to do that because I think a lot of us can get stuck, and feeling like, what is it that I did or where could we have gone, in a different direction to make this actually work.
Right.
So I guess for you, the saying isn't true. It's not cheaper to keep her, is it?
Well, I think, come back to y'all. I'm going to say this. I know a lot of relationships. I have friends that play in different sports, NFL, NBA, and they feel like it's cheaper to keep them. Me, I'm about my peace. And everybody should be about their peace. Because without peace, there's no joy. Without joy, there's no strength. If you don't have no strength, then you can't bring other people joy that you don't have. You're digging from an empty well. So in my case, I want to make sure that I have peace. I don't really care about the money. Because I guess how I feel, I can always make money,
That's right.
but I can't get back my time.
That's right.
You can never get time back. Your time of peace, your time of joy, your time of feeling love. You can't get none of that back.
Oof.
But I can go make some money.
That's
Trust
right.
that.
Absolutely. Okay, so let me ask you this. In regards to children, because children play a large role when it comes to marriages as well. Do you think children can ruin a marriage, Frank?
I think children or a child can ruin a marriage if it's not all on them. If the parent is not mature and know how to structure that outline. If that parent don't know how to put things in order, what are you gonna get?
Right.
You know, so I tell you what, no matter what you're going into a relationship or marriage, you have to make sure that you're in order. Because without no order, there's no increase in relationship. There's no increase in getting to know each other, communication. The relationship fades away. Right. So you have to have order. And that order starts with you explaining to your child or children, this is how we're gonna do things. And we already know children can manipulate things. That's just the way we always kids at some point in time. That's how we was with our parents. But if you have a parent that won't stand up to their child, then I can't see how they will ever get in a marriage that's healthy. And you probably teaching that child how to get in an unhealthy relationship and marriage as well.
Right.
So if the communication ain't there with your child and outlines is not set and boundaries are not taught, before you even step into that I do, you're up for a long, long, long battle.
You're setting yourself up
You're
for
setting
failure.
yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself for a lot of tense, stress, tension, and things that you don't want in your life.
Right. But with this, do you think that sometimes, the divorce, because kids always want mommy and daddy to be together.
Yeah.
So with divorce, do you think that it sometimes can hurt the children?
Divorce, I think probably going to hurt them most of the time. A divorce is a separation. You got to remember, divorce, Kay, is something that it's like death, but they're not gone.
Right.
At least when somebody's buried, you have your grieving.
Right.
You never get over it, but it goes away each day. It feels a little better, just a little bit better to know that they're safe. But when you tear away from a marriage, you still have to experience that person most of the time, especially if you got a kid, Bob.
Right.
You have to still see that person. So those wounds can get rubbed and open right back up if you don't know how to handle that.
Right.
So you continue to relive stuff in your life, and you can take that what you relive, and take that into your next marriage. And as soon as that husband or that wife rub your wound wrong, you're blaming them.
Right.
You blaming them for whatever you went through years ago with your last spouse or your last boyfriend. Right. So, yeah, it can hurt not only the kids, but it can hurt your relationship moving forward.
It's definitely, it's an ugly situation. I know I've experienced it myself, and it's just it's not something that you want to go through, but you want to make sure that when it's done, you sever the ties correctly, and then you can move on. If you're, like you've said before in the past, there's no friendships. How do you think about that? After, you get a divorce and, the love has failed, think the friendship is still there?
Now, that could be a tough question for some people, because if you have kids, you have to keep the friendship somewhat, intact for the kids. But if you have no kids by them, the way I see things, I can be friends with you without a friendship. Friend can be, hey, how you doing when I see you? What's up? Hope everything going well. Friendship mean that we're talking on a regular basis. No, I'm not going to be doing that, because I owe my next relationship, my next spouse, better than that.
Right.
If it's all about my next relationship, next spouse, why would I let somebody take up some of my time that had an opportunity to, but they didn't do it right? I'm not giving second chances or trying to prove a point to them you missing out.
That's true.
No, once that's over, you go on, I go on, and I'm finna make this next person happy. If you paying attention, you paying attention.
That's true.
But this next person better be happy. They better be kicking it. They better be loving. So you better get on social media watching what I'm doing. That's just me. That's just me. I don't know. I don't know how you think, Kay, but that's just me.
I agree. Do you feel, Frank, that you lose a bit of yourself in a marriage, going through divorce, going through all of this? do you feel like you lose who you are?
I think if you don't know who you are coming in, you're going to lose a lot. A person that don't know who they are and don't know their purpose is just like not knowing their name. So if you don't even know your purpose in life, I don't think it's wise to get married till you understand who you are. Because you're going to try to get that person. Okay, let me talk to them. Let me go back here, y'all. You know, you're going to be talking to a person and asking them to fulfill a void in your life that they can't fulfill. You're going to be also not communicating and trying to hope they guess what's special about you. And when you do that, man, that runs people off. That tears things up. That tears the communication. That tears the relationship up. Nobody have time to guess. That's why communication is so important when you're talking about marriage or being in a long-lasting relationship. So when it comes to things like that, I will always top it off with, if you don't know how to communicate and if you don't know who you are, man, moonwalk. That means go back and find out who you are. Yeah, I used Michael Jackson. I did it. I did it. You want me to hit it? No, I ain't gonna even do it. I ain't even do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Okay, so I got one for you. In all this, in all of the learning about divorce and learning about marriage and all of that, and doing what's right for you and being in a peaceful mindset, doing what's right for the kids and doing what's right for your spouse, how do you know when you're on the road to divorce? How do you know when it's almost there? Like, how do you know what, maybe I should be looking at those papers?
You know what? That's a good question, okay? How do you know when you're on the road to divorce? Well, first of all, it's the road that you chose to be on. There's a lot of roads that you could be on, and if you chose the divorce road, either somebody led you there and said, go this way, or you learned that and didn't fix that, or you learned it through childhood and it came out when you got married. You're making your own roads. And I had to learn that too. You know, I'm looking at this, Kay, because everybody come from a different situation.
That's true.
So just because my mom and dad was together for 40-something years. They were married 40-something years. They taught me a lot by being married 40-something years, but they didn't give me no substance to how they did it in 40-something years.
Right.
So I went into this guessing game.
Right.
And you don't want to be guessing how to maneuver in a marriage. You can go to the counseling, but it's nothing like when you have to stay with somebody for the first time and you seeing stuff like, wait, hold on. Wait, why you leave this over here?
Right.
Wait, why your shoes over here?
Right.
And you go through all these different phases of, I got to change. And remember, if you want to be successful in stuff, you got to expect that you're going to have to change. And if you're not ready to change and get out of yourself, it's going to be tough. And like I say, if you're coming from a background that don't understand marriage, most times you are putting yourself on the road without you even knowing it for divorce. And you can't be ashamed about it. I think so many times people make you feel ashamed and like you, because you fail, you're a failure. Just because you fail don't mean you're a failure. I ain't no failure.
Right.
I tell you straight up, I'm not a failure because I failed at a lot of things and I bounced back and became successful in those things. And this is one of the things that I'll do the same thing in.
Right.
So I want to encourage people who may have went through something like this, a divorce or things of that nature, bad relationships, long-lasting relationships you thought you had. Listen, you're not a failure. And you need to find out, why did you fail at that? Right. Don't go on blaming everybody else. That's one thing that I have a problem when I talk to people, and I had to learn, stop blaming other people for your failed mistakes, because that's making you a failure too, because you're not realizing that the person in the mirror need to correct what they see, not just reflect what they see. Yeah.
Okay. Now, speaking of change, what if you two just have two different loving styles? You know, you have to teach someone to love you, right? So what if you just have two different loving styles and you can't get it right? You know, you just can't get it right, but you love the person that you're with. And it just keeps going wrong over and over again, always having arguments. The bad outweigh the good, but you love that person and they love you. What do you do?
Man, that's a tough question, because you're talking about, I'm in love with this person. They're in love with me. But boy, our love style crashes and clashes all the time. Well, what you're doing is saying, out of 7 days a week, I'm willing to put up with being happy for 3 and being miserable for 4. And if that's the life you want to live, then that's the life you're going to get. And you guess what? You're going to adapt to that life. You're going to adapt to being happy 3 days and miserable 4 days.
Right.
And that's going to be your norm.
Right.
So if you want that to be your norm, you know, at some point you're going to have to make a decision and say, you know what? Is this person capable, willing to make a difference, and we change one thing at a time each month? One thing. He focused on one thing, she focused on one thing, and we seek to change it one thing at a time every 30 days. Why not try that? That's called putting a plan together.
Absolutely.
And that's what a lot of people don't want to do. They want to put in the work.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to have some form of plan. You can't complain about it.
Yeah.
Keep complaining about it all day. You're not doing anything about it. You think it's going to change. It's insane.
Yeah,
Right.
it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. What happens to life after divorce? What happened to your life after divorce? Were you liberated?
There you go.
Did you have a
I'm gonna
divorce
get you back.
party?
Hey, don't worry. I'm coming back on you. Yeah. Well, I think I'm speaking for men that I have talked to about this situation that has been in these same situations. I think it gives you, give everybody a sense of freedom. Because you've been trying to do your best so long. You've been trying to do things right. And sometimes it's just not good enough.
Right.
Your right may not be good enough for that person.
Right.
And you might have to just accept me doing this right may not be good enough for this person because I can't fulfill the void that they have in their life.
Yeah.
They're going to have to seek God,
Right.
first of all, and find out how to fill that void the right way
Right.
on a solid foundation.
Right.
And people can yell, oh, God, I went to church. Oh,
Right.
yeah, I went to counseling. But when it's time to apply that knowledge, it's a little different. So I think the first thing come across my mind from experience myself and others I talk to is freedom. Now you free to see what you did wrong, what you did right. Even, do you still got it? do you still got the juice? I don't know. I'm just telling you. When you walk around, do you still got the juice?
Right,
You know, hey, I still got it.
I was going to say, do you still got it?
So at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to, you know.
Okay. So finding out that you got the juice.
Right.
You got it now. You know you got it.
Right.
What are some rules to get back into the dating game and get back into the marriage game? If you decide that you want to get married again, what are some rules that you set forth for yourself that you know that if you don't submit to this rule or this rule or this rule?
Well, I think for me, when I first, I said I don't want to get married again.
Wait a minute, Frank.
That's what I said.
Wait
I'm
a
just trying to
minute,
I'm trying to be real. We're going to be real over here, right?
Okay, we're going to be real. So we need to talk about that. Why?
Look at that, you ready.
I'm just eager to understand because I said I'd do it 55,000 times if I had to do it again and again and again. I'm just going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
But you said no. Why not?
I think it was the place I was in. Everything matters. You look at what position you're in at that time. That position can change.
Right.
One day you could be in this position of how you thinking that. My position when it was all said and done, you know, I was like, man, they got to come with it. Like, dude, I was like on some, like, you better have it together.
Yeah.
Not together, but together.
Two of them.
Two of them. So I was like, I don't want to do this if this is how it is and this is what I'm going to face and, you know, you're being faithful for all these years. You know, you're going to still go through, oh, man, I don't want it like that. But I had to realize that it wasn't, once I realized that it wasn't all about that person or it was more about me, of how I do things and how I base the decisions. I blamed it on me because I have to make better decisions going in. Because if I'd have made better decisions going in, I probably wouldn't have did it. So that alone made me backpedal.
Right.
I hit Michael Jackson, I moonwalked. So then I got back into, okay, then I came to Atlanta, and we got another topic for that. So we ain't even gonna go in there.
That's how you kind of pause.
Yeah,
like,
I paused.
"Ooh,
I don't want them to know
Atlanta."
that juicy. We gonna go into that about that. But once I learned how the market was, that turned me off a little bit. It's okay for a good 6 months. You know, you do your thing, have a little fun.
Right.
But then that get real old
Right.
real fast because you're used to being
Right.
confined and order and
Right.
outline of what you're doing, how you're doing it. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
You know.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you? What about you, Kate?
Wait a minute.
Let's jump back over here. Like, it's dodgeball. Let's go.
So for me, some of my rules.
Yeah. What? Some of the things that you experienced in your last marriage, how did that affect you
Oh my gosh.
going in to your?
Oh my gosh,
Next one.
I was like you. I was like, oh no, this is how it is. Oh,
Right.
parents like you. My parents together 40 years, coming
Right.
up on 40 years, 39.
Right.
So I'm naturally thinking like, okay, if this is a cakewalk. I never saw my parents argue. Maybe once.
Right.
They didn't bring that around us. So I'm thinking this is how life is going to be. But once it happened, boy, it was awful. And I said I'd never do it again. It took me 4 years to go on a date with someone. Literally. Moved to Atlanta after it happened. It took me 4 years to go on a date. And I, same as you, this person has to bring it.
Right.
You got to wow me.
Yeah.
And it took him, my current husband, 'cause
Right.
I'm now
right.
married.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did his thing.
He
Okay.
did his thing. But it took me a while to even open up to him on any level.
Right.
You know, I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to look at him. Like, okay, who is he? I don't care. And so I think I was the same way, where I was trying to figure out what it is I wanted. Because you got to make sure that you're right.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And you got to understand, like you said, that marriage isn't about pass or fail. It's a commitment and a bond that you build together.
Right.
Once it's over, you know, you figure out why,
Right.
and then you move on so you don't do it again.
Right. Exactly.
But don't say like you and say, I'll never do this again.
Oh yeah, I said that. I ain't gonna lie. I said it loud and proud.
Yeah.
You know, until I got in a different position about
Yeah.
it. You know, one thing too, we have to talk about when you're talking about marriage is several points I want to make, man. The first point is, if you're seeking to get married, you got to know how to communicate properly. A lot of times, our up and coming men and women that's getting married, they don't know how to communicate because they text all the time or they don't know how to hold a conversation. Well, I'm here to tell you that texting in the house with your spouse is not going to work very long. You better take some communication skills classes or something, because you're going to have to learn how to articulate and communicate to your spouse. The second thing I'm going to talk about, you have to be flexible. If you don't know how to be flexible, which means, hey, I'll adjust that for you, babe. You got to be flexible. If you're not flexible, most likely you're going to be by yourself. And I'll talk about this. When you get ready to get married, you have to make sure they're a friend, not a fan. See, a friend is someone that want to see you do good. A fan is a person that looks at you and say, I want to conquer the world, but they really want to conquer you. And a fan will say this too. They'll say, oh, man, I just want to be successful in life. They really just want to be more successful than you. See, a fan, man, they coattail riders. They try to see what you're doing. They try to watch what you're doing. And they say, hey, I'm learning from you. You're teaching me. But in front of people, they try to say, oh, yeah, I did all that. I the one did that. I the one did this. Nah, all along they're trying to steal your identity because they see the attention that you get from your purpose. So you have to make sure that you identify who you're talking to. Also, are you in love with them or in love with what they do? Think about it. You might be in love with what they do. I hear a lot of women in love with a guy because he played ball. Now I love him more. That's in love with his title, not him as a person. So you have to make sure you're in love with that person for the right reasons. And if you're not, don't go there, because that money can run out in 5 years and you'll find out just what you knew at the beginning. I never loved him. I never loved her. I only love what they can do for me. That's right. And you'll be wasting your time. You just wasted 5 years of your time just so you think you can be comfortable with a couple of purses, a couple of red bottoms, maybe a nice car. You lose all that anyway in 3 or 4 years. Think about it.
That's ugly.
Yeah, that's the way it go though.
Yeah. Well, that's a sign that it's over, I think. No, I'm done with questions. I have no more questions for you. I think that was perfect, and I agree with you, Frank. I think you got to make sure that you're right 150% before you even think about moving on. and even getting into a marriage?
I think too, Kay, before you get married, I think you need to examine a person's circle. Like who they hanging with. Like you can't tell me you hanging with your girlfriends that provocative and all on social media half naked and you see them sleeping around and all that good stuff, but you not. I don't know how to separate the two. You may not be doing that, but there's no way I can separate the two. Because if you hang around them, you either live in your fantasy through them, which is not a good thing because eventually you'll turn into a reality in doing what they're doing. You got to scope out a person's circle as well. Family members, you got to scope out what background they from. Do they like their mom? Do they like their dad? Are they always argumentative about everything? Get around their family, scope things out, scope all that out, man, because that's going to give you an overall picture of what you're dealing with. So I'll leave. You have anything else here? You good?
No,
you
I
good?
think we're good, yeah.
Okay. So what I'll leave us with is this. Remember to investigate. I'll say it again. Investigate, investigate, investigate. And it's not the type of investigation where you're coming up against the person or you're looking for something to hold over their head. You're just trying to make sure that 6, 5, 4 years from now, you don't find yourself in a position right back where you started. That's not fair to you, that's not fair to that person, and that's not fair if they got kids. So why not do your investigation right now? Do your investigation before you fall in love. And I don't really like the term fall in love. You just failed and tripped over something and fell in love. I don't like that term. Hey, unconditional love is what you look for. Because one day her body's gonna change, but trust and believe. One day your body's gonna change. And if you love them because of their body, you won't love them when it's gone. Make sure you love them for them, and they'll possibly love you for you. Ha, I love it. This your boy Frank D. Murphy on the Frank D. Murphy Show. I'm out of here. See you next time.
Murphy gon' put y'all on. Murphy gon' put y'all on. That's the show. Murphy gon' put y'all on. Murphy gon' put y'all